We made it. We are more than conquerors through Christ who strengthens us. We are overcomers. We had our 5 smooth stones and we've been slaying all evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Stories with Kishen, ordinary people with extraordinary lives. And today is no exception. I have been talking about the author of the book, Breaking the Silence, an author who has a story, who has a testimony. And if you've been tuning in and you know that I generally will base this whole podcast adventure, and I'll call it an adventure, it's based on Revelations 12 and 11. We overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. And Ena Friday has a testimony to share. So what you need to do when you tune in is you like, you share, you comment, and all of that. So without further ado, I am going to bring into the broadcast none other than my cousin. We used to walk to school together. Ena Friday.
Hello, cousin.
Welcome, Ena. You are here. You know what we've gone through so far.
Yes, we've been through it.
And
just to get started, right?
Right, just to get started. But we are here and you have a story to tell. And I'm just going to plug your book again. And if you see all my little tabs,
I saw it the other day. I said, oh, she got tabs all over.
Girl, I said, oh my goodness, this book is so powerful. This is a ministry. This is truly a ministering tool that God has given to you to share with others. Breaking the Silence is a book that you wrote after a long, I guess I would say, battle with just being in that moment of what happened to you as a child. And when I got to the moment where the silence finally broke, it still was years before the healing took place.
Yes, it was.
So talk a little bit about this book, Breaking the Silence, and let's just start off from your childhood, because that's pretty much where this stems from.
Yes. Okay. So Breaking the Silence, like you said, it was a long history before I even started the healing. So I just want to give a little background of like where all this came from. For me, being molested as a child by a family member, I went through a lot of years, and I talk a lot about suffering in silence. I wasn't until I was in my late 30s, touching 40, and into my 40s before I even began to focus on the healing, because I was so hurt and wounded and ashamed. And I suffered in silence for years. So that means even through when I had my children, I have 2 failed marriages, and all of that stems from not healing from being molested as a child. And it took me on a roller coaster ride through life, because even when I left, like you said, we used to walk to school together, and you never knew. So I knew how to put on a front. I always talk about being authentic, because I was not authentic. It was a cover up for me. It was one of the many people that I could be without. I don't know why I thought that people could see that had happened to me, because I was so full of shame. So you think you wear it all over. You think it's just posted all over your body. And so I knew how to cover up. But when I got to Georgia, and I had went through so much, even when I left Michigan, and I began to question, what was this life about? Like, why am I here? Like, why am I here if this is the type of life that I have to live? Yeah. But it wasn't until I got deep down into what the root was. And that's why I say it took a lot of years, because I didn't want to deal with it, because I was angry. I was hurt. I had full of shame. I had guilt. And then I felt alone. I felt so alone in that place. And I thought that everybody was ashamed of me. And so I thought running away to a whole nother state where I felt like I was starting over was gonna be it for me. But that wasn't the case. That just added to what I already was dealing with. So that, like
Wow.
you said, it's a ministry because it's more than just that. But when you get to the root cause of why I went through so much and you begin to deal with what you went through, for me, is when the healing process began because I was ready to heal and I had had enough.
And I think for most people, when they get to that point where they're ready, is they've had enough. And as like I said, on my little posters, and I know we can't talk about all of these but there's so much in here that I thought was interesting. And I read a book literally from cover to cover. So
Mm-hmm.
in your dedication, I
Mm-hmm.
want to just read this part because I think that's where a lot of people stay stuck
Mm-hmm.
because they don't share. And so you have written, this book is dedicated to everyone that has been a victim of child sexual abuse, to the parents of the victims, the generations of
Mm-hmm.
families that have
Mm-hmm.
witnessed its effects, and the many organizations that provide support and resources which enable victims of abuse to find their way towards living full and victorious lives. And what I highlighted was the generation of families that
Yes.
have witnessed its effects, and they don't say anything.
Mm-mm.
Nobody comes forth. And because when you were molested and when you finally shared it with your mom, it wasn't like the next day. It
No.
wasn't like the next week or month. But you talk about the guilt and the shame. But like you said, you had gotten to that tipping point. You were about to burst open if you did
Yes.
not share this. And you
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
But people won't share. And your mom, and all of her love,
My little
did
lady.
that. She literally loved you. She loved you
Mm-hmm.
in that moment. When I was reading this, I thought of the movie Precious,
Oh
where
wow.
her mom was a part of it,
Mm-hmm.
was a part of everything that was happening, but you didn't have that. Your mom was like, uh-uh, I'm going to love, I'm going to listen. And then she
Yes.
acted.
Yes. And that was that
That,
for me. I think that was one of the big sighs when I finally told my mom. I think I was around 16 years old.
mhm,
And so can you imagine from third and fourth grade, this happened to you? And then here I am 16 and I finally tell my mom. And the first thing she says is, "Oh my God, I believe you." And that was not even like it. I don't know why that came out that way, but maybe God needed it to come out that way because I talk about that in my book about believing your
mhm,
child if they come and tell you something like that until you're able to investigate and do whatever you need to do. But I think it gives you a sense of some type of security, even if it's just for that moment. Because, like I said, for me, it took years for the healing. But for my mom to automatically believe me and begin to act and begin to, do take the necessary steps, because there were steps taken all the way to a lawyer, but the statute of limitations had ran out. So that right there, to have that support, but not knowing that I still had a road ahead of me that I was going to have to battle. Because I
yeah,
said in my book, just because you let the secret out doesn't mean that you're healed. And
yeah.
that's what happened for me. I let it out, but I was not healed. And it was years and years later.
So let's go through your healing process because um, that's when you acknowledge and that initial, okay, this is what happened, that's the beginning of it,
Mm-hmm.
because you're no longer suppressing it. You're no
Right.
longer, um, I mean, there's still some emotions tied to it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, it's exposed now. Now, how do we go through this? So let's walk through that because, like I said, I can just go through all of this. And the one thing that really speaks to your character in your introduction, you said, navigating my way through many of life's trials and overcoming by the grace of God has earned me the title of resilient catalyst.
Yes.
When I read that, I'm like, ooh, I like that.
Yes.
That's just powerful. So let's talk about, what is a resilience catalyst?
A resilient catalyst is somebody who faces the challenges and
Okay.
they are moving a different perspective. It's like you look at things from a different view. And yes, you bounce back. I know when I was doing my lives, I used to say I was the bounce back queen. You bounce back, but even in the bounce back, you have an outlook that I'm going to move forward. And you no longer allow those hindrances, those things that you went through, hold you back. So you remember and you say, okay, well, the next thing that I go through, I know that I'm going to be able to come back from that because I've overcame so many things. And that's where the resilient catalyst came from. Because not only was it the molestation, but then after years of going through trials with failed relationships and struggles and being homeless and, staying in a hotel with my children in Georgia because I was in an awful relationship that I had no business being in, and I had to find my way and I had to remind myself, you've been in these places before. So how you handled the last one and it got you out, what are you going to do? What is your mindset going to be? What are you going to tell yourself? You can either stay stuck in where you're at, or you can say, you know what? No, I need to own this and I need to move forward. So it's all about the mindset, and it's all about how, that's why I talk about perspective, putting things in perspective. Like I can stay bitter or I can do better. And so it was all about me doing better and remembering those things that I already overcame. And then I began to tell myself, Ena, you got yourself in these situations because of X, Y, and Z. So I knew how to start associating what I went through with things that I had not healed from. And I began to take my life back into my own hands and say, you know what? No, things are going to be different. And so it was all about a mindset and knowing that I need to change my thoughts and I need to move forward regardless of what comes up against me, because we all are going to face obstacles in life, but it's how you go through them is what makes you resilient. Because even though I'm healed now, that doesn't mean that I still don't have challenges and I
Right.
still don't face things, but it's how I deal with them. And so that is how I became the resilient catalyst. And I still I'm true to that, because I always say, if God got me through that thing, that one thing that I felt like I needed to take my life from, and nothing else has caused me to want to take my life, but if that one thing and he brought me through that, I know that he's going to bring me through the next. Now, how am I going to deal with this? So that's how that came about.
And you speak so much truth in that. So if you think about people who overcome one thing, it's like, okay, now I got a little bit more strength. So
Yes.
when the next thing comes, okay, I got a little bit more strength
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it's reminding me of
Mm-hmm.
when you go through one thing, but sometimes people are afraid to knock that wall down. But you're like, okay, I'm busting through this.
Yeah.
What's next? But it took a lot of unpacking of different things, different emotions. And chapter 2 talks about feeling unloved and scattered emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about trauma. And you're right, any type of trauma can cause all types of emotions. And what were some of the emotions that you were dealing with even after you transitioned to Georgia?
For me, the biggest one is I did not love myself.
Mm,
I did not love who I was. I did not like who I was. I felt like was not deserving of anything of value, if that
Mm.
makes sense. Because it seemed like my life was such a downer for me growing
Mm.
up because of that past. And I couldn't find my way out of that dump. Like I just was wearing the weight of the suffering in silence. So everything that I told myself that I wasn't, I believed it. And I even talked to one day on my live, I talked about how when you begin to tell yourself something and you believe it, that even for me, having a moment of where I thought I was going to be happy, I would shut that happiness down and I would think about something that I went through that was not anything good, and that's what I would focus on, so I would not have a taste of happiness because I didn't feel like I
Mm.
deserved to be happy. Why people would say,
Wow.
"Oh my goodness, I never thought that. I wish you always look so happy. You always look so free." But because I knew how to mask and cover up. That's why I talk a lot about being authentic, because if you don't know somebody, you would think that they're authentic. And for me, I didn't let enough people in to know what I truly was going through. So it was easy for me to put on and shift and feel those, continue to stay in that feeling unloved. I felt I
Yeah.
wanted to, like I said, I wanted to take my life on a
Mm.
numerous occasions because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel like I was enough. I felt like I was dirty. And for somebody who never experienced, no child should experience being sexually abused. But as you begin to grow up, I think in my book, you saw where I said I was a people watcher. I
Mm-hmm.
watched children in a sense of, I wondered, did they live a happy life? Like, what
Mm.
does that look like? Why are they laughing? Why are they so happy? What is their household like? Like, what is that? And so for me, all of those things that I beat myself up about, I became them. I knew I was that. And that's why it's so important that we associate ourselves with good people. And not to say I didn't have good people, but again, I moved to Georgia. So I didn't know anybody here. So that was the cherry on the top for me. Because now, although I'm feeling and dealing with my own emotions and my own thoughts of suicide inside, who knew me?
Right.
Nobody. So I didn't really, it didn't take a lot for me to put on. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those emotions are real and they
Yeah.
can kill you. They can kill you literally.
Yeah. As I was reading, even when you were saying why didn't people know? Why didn't
Mm-hmm.
they not see it? Why could people not see this? And I read this article, or you'll see Goldcast or different things on Instagram, and this
Mm-hmm.
young lady was kidnapped out of her bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And as she was being taken away, and this was like in the evening time, and she realized that what she had gotten herself into with this online relationship with this older man,
Mm-hmm.
that, okay, this is a wrong move. So she said as she
Mm-hmm.
got further and further away from home, she couldn't figure out why, as they were passing people, nobody knew when they got to a toll booth. And she said, okay, they're going to see me and they're going to know. And they kept going. And she said, how could they not know?
Yeah.
And that's just so parallel with feeling hopeless almost. It's like, okay,
You
nobody,
do feel
how can you
hopeless.
not see this?
Yeah.
And I remember walking to school. I would come over
Mm-hmm.
there and pick you up as we went
Mm-hmm.
on to school,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you were kind of quiet, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you would laugh. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like there was anything that, I mean, I'm your age, so why would I
Right.
think
So you're
anything
like,
different?
right.
But you're
And
just
I
quiet.
say, and I said in the book, I was hoping that the teacher
Mm-hmm.
would notice that something is wrong with this girl.
Yeah.
you remember I loved Miss Combs, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
she's so mean, but she's so sweet to me. It's like she
Mm.
always gravitated to me, and Mr. Palmer, and I just was like, it was like a voice was screaming, look at me, but it wasn't coming out. But it
Wow.
was like you were begging for somebody, because again, you have to remember when you're young, and if that happens to you as a young child, the perpetrator will make you think that you're going to die, your family's going to die, your mom's going to die, your family's going to hate you, they're not going to believe you. So if this is something that's continually taunted in your mind, so then you don't open up, because you don't want your family to die, you don't want your family to get hurt, you don't want your mom to, so you're looking for a way out, but let it be an out that it's not you bringing it
Right.
out. So
And
a lot of that was that.
you hit on something that I highlighted too. It says exactly, no one's going to believe you. You're going to be in trouble. Your family is going to suffer. And you said I was terrified. And people will use fear
Yes.
to get you in that state of just don't you bet not say anything
You
because you
better
do
not.
become fearful.
Because you're a kid, like I'm in
Mhm.
the third grade, I mean, like, you're talking about an adult telling a child, and you look at it, and to be fair, somebody who's looked up in the family, who's looked at somebody that's supposed to be trusted in the family,
Yeah.
and so you look at that, and you look at you, and you say, well, they're not going to believe me, they're not
Mm.
going to, so you do become this person that's out in this like, it's like walking out on a pier and it's dark,
Mm.
and you're just going, but you don't know when that pier is going to end because it's so
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
That was a place for me for a lot of years. Just dark. Just
Mm.
dark. Yeah.
And now you see the light
I see
because
the light.
you were fighting to move forward. And one of the things that I found interesting is that you in your church is where
Mm-hmm.
you were able to break through some of this,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was very telling about what the church really what really does. And I
Yeah.
think there was somewhere in here where you talked about it was like a hospital where a lot of sick people are there.
Yeah. The church is for the sick people. It's not for the healed people. It's for
Hmm.
sick people. So
Yeah.
you go there to get healed from whatever that thing is in your life.
Yeah.
And literally, that was a big part of the key for me. That was a big part of the key.
Thank you,
So
Lord.
thank you, God. Yes.
Um, so let's talk about the forgiveness stage
Mm-hmm.
because you talked about multiple ways to forgive. Um, and so one of the things as it relates to self forgiveness, it says, as I did the work to uncover the layers beneficial for healing, forgiveness was difficult but necessary.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the only one who finds that forgiveness because you talk about, well, why do I have to
Mm-hmm.
forgive him? Why can't
Mm-hmm.
he suffer?
Yeah.
And you go through those emotions and they're legitimate because
They're valid. Mm-hmm.
you took away something from me. So let's talk about getting to that point of forgiveness, not just for yourself, but then also forgiving that individual.
Yes. So I was not ready to forgive the perpetrator. I was not. And I struggled with that for a lot of years, even when I was on the road to healing and I was feeling good about who I was and learning more about who I was. Um, and so it was something at church. I think what happened at church a lot of times is the pastor will always talk about forgiveness. And there was times that I shut that down. He was like, just dig in. It's somebody that you haven't forgiven in your life or anything. And I would skate over that, and I would think about everybody else in the world, because in my mind, I said, no, I don't have to forgive him. He stole me. Like he violated my body. And
Yeah.
if you're my God, then you would agree with me because I'm your child, and that should have never happened to me. So I would use stuff like that to validate my reasons why I didn't have to. But something hit me during my healing, after I worked on the healing for me, because I learned that I needed to be whole for me first. Because if I wasn't whole for me first, there was no way in my heart that I was going to truly forgive what happened to me. There's just no way. And so, again, that whole mindset, looking at it like, okay, yes, this happened to me, but what if this happened to him? Because
that generational thing.
hurt people, and it's generational.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I was like, you know what? This is happening everywhere. And
Yeah.
it's happening in families, and families are hiding it. And families are not being bold because they don't want Uncle Joe and Auntie Susie over here to be disowned from the family. So we're just going to shut this down. We're just going to hide it, and it's going to be okay. And I was like, but when that happens, it's generational. And if you don't tell somebody, believe me, that person has done it to other people. And then if those people are not strong, they're going to do it to somebody else. And they're going to do it to the nieces and the nephews and the cousins and the little babies that you bring over and say, can you watch the child today? Because that Uncle Joe over here that you allowed, that you didn't say anything about, still around kids. And there's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
And so I began to look at it from a different perspective. He was sick. He was sick. And God knows who's done that to him.
Yeah.
So he had to probably be a young person. And I said, you know what? I'm good. So I need to work on it. So even though I started rationalizing it that way, I still wasn't ready. So I would talk about these things a lot and talk about the effects of abuse. So if it happened to me, it's happened to somebody else. So how do we change this? How can I do something different? How can I move past the hurts? How can I grow and make sure that I'm doing my part to make sure that I talk to my kids, to make sure I talk to my nieces, my nephews, people that I come encounter with. And so I always said I was never going to shy away if an opportunity came. And when God began to use me to speak to women, I said, there is no way I can help any woman with any issues that they've encountered if I have not forgiven this person, because now I'm a fake. And so I had to do the work. A lot of praying, a lot of journaling, a lot of repenting, a lot of talking to God, a lot of crying to God, a lot of rationalizing with God, a lot of, God, I'm mad today, and God, I can't do it. And why do I have to forgive this person? God, help me. Like, I'm just going to help somebody else. Why can't this person just suffer? I mean, it was years. I'm just keeping it real, because every time I began to feel good about forgiving, the whole scenario began to pop up. Until one day, I knew God had a bigger calling on my life. And I was walking with God. I was in tune with God. And he was working in my life, and he was changing me, and he was maturing me, and he was growing me, and he was showing me that I didn't need to be loved by the wrong person. I needed to love him. And I needed to have a relationship with him so that he could heal me from the inside out, so that I can forgive. And that's when it all started for me. And then I said, you know what? I remember the day it happened in church. I said my pastor would be talking about forgiveness. And I stood up. Now, I didn't have to confess this in front of the church, of course.
Right.
So my cousin that molested me, he died. He was dead already. He died
Mhm.
at a mid age. So it wasn't like the person was even still here. But I knew in my heart that it wasn't right. So I remember when Pastor said something and was doing the whole, we were fasting or something, and we were just, and I'm like, I can't live like this. Ena, you cannot. How can you walk in obedience, but you know you haven't forgiven? You're not walking in obedience. And so I literally remember standing up and I was praying and I was just praying to God, and I just raised my hand and I
Mhm.
said, I forgive you. I
Wow.
forgive you. I forgive you. And I said, now, God, it is in your hands, because I know that my forgiveness was sincere. And I'm
Yeah.
literally, for me, is when things really begin to open up for me into the things that I'm doing now.
You know
And
what? When you said that, the scripture says these kind only come out through fasting and prayer. And so when you're talking about you were fasting and then you
Mhm.
were praying
Pray.
and then you
Yes.
spoke that, I'm like, look at God's
Yeah.
word work.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
God is good.
Yes, he is. And I thank him every day.
Wow.
I thank him every day for where he has me in my life. And
Yeah.
if people do not learn to forgive for
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, it's more
Yeah.
than just what I went through, but for whatever it is, you are hindering your growth. You are hindering what God has for you. And I
Yeah.
believe that in my heart. I believe that because during the forgiveness piece is when I literally began to feel the weights lift
Mm-hmm.
off of me daily, monthly, yearly. Things began to just
Wow.
change relationally, relationships. Everything just began to be different.
Yeah. When you let go and
And
literally
let
let
God.
God, let
Yes.
him have his way and just
Yes.
watch all types of things begin to shift.
Yes.
And whoo,
Yes.
Jesus. That's what I felt when you said that. It was a shift.
Yes.
It was a shift in the spirit realm
Mhm.
when you
Mhm.
truly relinquished that, a couple of days I posted a rope, somebody holding a rope in their hand,
Mm.
and they were holding on to that rope and they wouldn't let go and their hand was
Mm.
bleeding. But when they
Mm.
started to let it go, gradually let it go, then the healing began to take place. And
Yes.
when it completely let it go, then the hand was healed. Then that's when people become healed. But when they hold on to that rope
Yes.
and they
Yes.
won't
Yes.
let go, they are just hurting themselves and the wound to stand open, and you gotta let go.
You are steady
Girl,
keeping that wound
woo!
open. Yes. Yes.
My
And that
God.
right there literally is what my life was like.
Wow. Whew. So
Yes.
you've healed, but
Yes.
you are now able to successfully be in a good relationship.
Yes.
Because although you and I are talking today, we have a three-part, I call it a love affair,
Yes.
um, a three-part series with you. So
Hmm.
your book, Breaking the Silence, how can people get a hold of this book?
So if people want to get a hold of this book, like I am on all kinds of websites, you guys. I mean, I'm all over the different Australia and Italy. I'm like, wow. But if you,
Really? Oh, you
yes, I know
global.
it's all over. So if you want to get a copy of the book, you can go to enanichelle.com and get it off my website. And it's also available. Everybody know about Amazon. Of course, it's on Amazon. It's on Books a Millions. It's on Barnes and Nobles, but I would love for you to grab a copy. Just go to enanichelle.com and you can get a copy. And I have some exciting things coming up. So,
Yes, yes, I'm looking forward to all of that. So, this is part one.
mm-hmm.
Part two, because you didn't get into that too much. You didn't get into the relationship with your
Mm-mm.
husband that you met because
Right.
he also has a testimony and a story to
Mm-hmm.
share. But
Yes.
you guys have been able to overcome so much together that
Mm-hmm.
God is now blessing both of you in ways that you hadn't even imagined.
Yes.
So tell us as we close this out and segue into his part, tell us a
Okay.
little bit about how you met your husband, because we're going to pick up
Ooh.
on Saturday, this Saturday, the March 20th at 7
Mhm.
p.m. So this is going to be a continuation. So take us into that moment when you guys
Okay.
met.
Okay. So, like I said, I was on my healing journey and I was working on me. Um, it's crazy how God does things, right? You don't understand why you have to be in a certain situation. So I was an angry woman. Like I
Mm,
was angry, but I was still healing. And I had got to a place where I was like, no more. I'm working on me. I'm going to love me. I'm going to do all the things I need to do that God says I need to do for me. I'm going to pay attention to me. And I'm going to just fall in love with Jesus. And I'm going to cover myself with everything about the Word of God. Lo and behold, my car got totaled. And I was on a bus. I was living in Duluth, Georgia. If anybody knows where Duluth, Georgia is. And in order for me to get to work, I had to take 3 buses and a train. And so
wow.
my morning would start at 4 o'clock. So talk about the change, and you're trying to get yourself together, and you didn't, okay, I'm working on me and I'm doing all these great things for me and I'm gonna focus on me, and now I don't have a car and I gotta get on 3 buses and a train to get to work at 4 in the
Wow.
morning. So talk about feeling like I ain't with all of this. So I had attitude. So I had a lot of attitudes, a lot of times, because like I said, I was still working on me.
Right.
And I would get on the bus and I remember the day. I was reading T.D. Jakes. It's I can't think of the title now, but it's in my book. Her Lover, Her
Right.
Life, or something. But I would literally put in headphones. This is how focused I was about not letting anybody distract my life. I
Hmm.
would plug in my headphones. I would read a book. There would be no sound in the headphones, but because I didn't want anybody to bother me, it looked like I was doing stuff. But I was like, I
I've
don't
done
want to be
that.
on here. I don't want to be on here. I don't want to be around these people. And I'm sorry, I say these people stink. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I can't believe this. And I remember the day I was reading the book, and I really was reading the book. And my husband laughs about it because I was sitting on the outside seat, but there was an inside seat, and the bus was crowded. And I was like, I ain't school no more. Nobody's sitting here. I'm working on me. That was my whole excuse. I'm working on me. So everybody's out because I had it with all the stuff. And literally, I was reading the book, and the bus stopped, and next thing I know, there's this tall guy standing next to me, and he's wet. It's raining outside. And I'm looking like, oh God, now he wants to sit down. That's what I was thinking. And he says, excuse me, ma'am, do you mind if I sit with you? And I just said, sure, that's not a problem. And I scooted over. And when I tell you, it was God sent, because we was both having a day. And we talked. It was not about getting with me. It wasn't about you looking like it was just pure, genuine conversation. We were talking about having a bad day. And I said, wow, I just had a bad weekend and I had an attitude. But literally this morning when I got up, I was feeling good. He said, we all get to choose how we feel. And and it was literally like,
Conviction.
yes. And we just talked all the way to our next stop about feelings and how we feel and why do we feel certain way. And it was just pure conversation, a conversation that was so welcoming. It was like just two people on their way to work. We wasn't thinking about, oh, I want to get with her, but I'm like, she on a bus, and I'm looking at him like, he on a bus. So it was just like we was just enjoying the decent conversations,
Wait,
and
and
we
you go
did that.
like this to show
Oh,
your representation. I'm like bling bling.
I'm sorry, no.
No, you not, and don't be.
Right? No, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry.
I know that's
But
right.
yeah, and we did that. We we got off the bus and got on the train together. And I was like, "Where you going?" And he was like, "I'm going with you." And we would sit next to each other on the train, and we literally looked for each other on our
Wow.
next days, like on our rides to work, not knowing. And I'm gonna let him tell what he
Yes.
said, but I didn't know. But it was
Right.
literally just, and instead of being like this now, so when I knew we got to stop, I'd be like, "Oh, here I am." But it was just fun. It was just like, "Hey," and
Right.
it was
It was a
just like
friendship.
a friendship. It was a friendship. It was
Yeah.
nothing more, and I was not looking for anything more. And that's another part of when I knew that I was healed too, because I didn't feel like I had to have somebody.
Yeah.
I was confident in who I was. So I was still getting those little reminders along the way. And one thing that I did carry in my purse after I went to a little bit of counseling at my church from the bad relationships is my negotiables and non negotiables. And I carried
Mm.
that thing in my purse, and it was so raggedy. But it was a reminder that if this is who you say you're going to be, then you don't settle for anything less than what you have on this paper. And so I literally was like, when I pulled, I mean, this is way after the fact, months and months after. And I just remembered that paper, and I pulled it out, and I was like, God, you are so funny. I said,
I
God,
keep
you are
people
funny.
say he has a sense of humor.
Yes, he does. He has a way of doing things.
And just so people, because I really want people to get this book. I've been reading this book
Yes.
and I'm being convicted all over. There are tips in here. There's prayers in here.
Mm-hmm.
There's just exercises in here. You have
Mm-hmm.
got to get this book. I'm telling you. Um, And again, it's by Ena Friday. So if you just Google her name, if you can't remember the
Mm-hmm.
website, Ena Friday, Google her, get this book about the author. She is a survivor. She is an overcomer. She is more than a conqueror through Christ who strengthens her.
Yes.
And
Yes.
her husband, I am looking forward to interviewing him on Friday because then I'll get his perspective. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
there's always two sides to every story. So
Yes, it
he'll get a
is.
chance to share his story. And then the following Saturday, which is the 27th, you guys will both be able
Mm-hmm.
to share in your cooking ministry. That's what I'm going to call it.
Yes. The
What is
cooking
it?
ministry.
Culinary cakes and conversations or
Culinary Cakes and Conversations.
right.
Yes, my
Oh,
organization, but yes.
I'm looking forward to that. And I wish we were in the same vicinity because I would love to culminate on some of that culinary.
Yes, because he would, girl, he'd be like having it ready for you.
I know. And the pictures that you share on Facebook, and I'm like, oh my goodness, if
Yeah.
only. So, Ena, before we go, I like to
Okay.
always go to see what comments people are making and then
Okay.
respond to some of them.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Jean. Thanks for tuning in. Jean and I are going to connect. Um, oh gosh, we're going way to the top. And I'm
Uh-oh.
sure we already said hi to Kathy or your Aunt Kathy
Hi, Aunt Kathy.
and your daughter. You know
Hi,
what?
Nisha.
I
That's my
just
girl.
want, she is a trooper. She always has your back. She is an
Yes.
encourager. You are
Mm-hmm.
blessed to have a
Yes.
daughter like that. Oh,
Yes.
Robin tuned in too. She said, yes, predators target people who they believe they can
Mm-hmm.
intimidate and control. And the
I always say
manipulation,
that.
it is sad.
It's
It is
sad. And I
sad.
always say if you look weak, they're going to
Hmm.
target you. That's why I aspire and try to empower people to talk to their kids and encourage them to have confidence and build their confidence up and remind them that they're beautiful, they're loved, and all of these things to help them be able to have a voice. Because sometimes you
Yeah.
don't have a voice. It's not because your parents didn't give you a voice, but sometimes you just don't know what to
Yeah.
do. So that's
Yeah.
part of the book, talks about those tips and tools about encouraging and talking to your kids and reminding them that no conversation is off the table. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how the conversation comes out, you need to get it out. So if you got to let out a little curse word to get that out and it's going to save your life, then I'm going to need you to let that curse word out so we can save your life. Because sometimes we talk to our kids and we don't allow them to have an expression, an opinion on the things that they're going through. And sometimes
Yeah.
they don't understand how to let that out in a way that we normally would. So if we want to be there and encourage them to have that voice, we have to allow them to express themselves. I'm sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox, but
Don't
one thing I talk
apologize.
about, one thing I talk about so dearly is about when your kids are away and they're going to different people's homes and they're doing things. They're going to daycare, they're going to sitters, they're going to different, I don't care if it's your relative house that they're going to, it doesn't matter. If they're going visiting and they're doing things, you need to have a designated time that you sit down with your kids after they come back, or even while
Mm.
they're there. Pick up the phone, call and talk to them. And it's not about having a secret code. You need to be able to let people know that you are all up in your kids' business when it comes to their well-being. So
Say
you got
that.
to be able to speak to them and not say, well, this is our code. No, this is not your code. If something does not feel right, if you are in a situation where you don't feel like you're safe, then I need you to call me. I need you to pick up the phone and I'm going to come get you. It is no questions asked. And we're going to talk about it when we get home. And it all
Yeah.
starts with those book, like my book says, those conversations. It's all about the conversation piece. And no parent, now I'm not saying that, parents are wrong or right, but sometimes we just need to be reminded. And sometimes it takes somebody like myself who've been in that spot and now I'm healed. And these are things that I wish would have been in place for me, because sometimes parents are busy. You have single parents trying to make it, trying to take care of home, and they don't think that, oh, I need to do this. But we need to put it back out in their face and say, yes, you're a single parent, but your kids are more important. So now we're not going to let you go in your room and eat dinner. We're going to sit down at this table and we're going to talk
Yeah.
about your day. And we're going to talk about some of those things that's bothering you. And I don't care how it comes out. And just like, I say, when your kids go to daycare, and if the daycare people say, oh, they had a really bad day. Okay, well, we're going to have a conversation. And sometimes those conversations need to start right there to let them know that you're going to talk to your kids. And then when you get home, instead of telling your kids, I'm going to get you for showing out and embarrassing me, how about sit them down and say, look, you can talk to me about anything. What happened today? What was so different today? Because it may be that one thing that you may miss, because people are sneaky and they can,
Mm.
just like I said, they're manipulators and they know how to get over, so to keep
Yeah.
themselves safe. Now, I'm not saying that's happening everywhere, but I'm just
Right.
saying make it a priority to have these decent conversations. I always say have those conversations that's uncomfortable until they become comfortable,
I know
because
that's
it's
right.
those uncomfortable conversations is where the meat is at, as far
Yeah.
as we need to get down and they need to know that it's okay that we talk about these things, and no more talking about your body parts being nicknames.
Right.
No, call it what it is.
Anatomically. and
So
and
that,
people would get
right,
upset with me. Why do you tell? Because that's what it is. I
that's
want
what
them
it
to know
is.
what their body parts are, because then they know exactly this person touched this or did
Exactly.
this. I
Yes.
don't. Yeah, I don't have time
Whew.
for all that
Yeah, that
kind of
right
stuff.
there gets it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yes, I'm so glad
Yes,
that
Carolyn.
you shared and
Hey,
you
Uncle
are
Don.
willing to share. So yes, Jean talks about forgiveness. Uh, I love the Amen Corner.
Yes,
LaShawn
of
be on
course,
it.
of course.
She
Yes,
do.
she
And
does.
Kathy. And
Yes.
right, Robin, it is hard.
Hey, Peggy.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh, and Uncle Don. Hey, glad y'all was on.
oh, hey Don. I don't see him yet.
She said, "Get on your soapbox." Yes, Carolyn. I had get so passionate. I have to get that out. I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate.
Okay. And
Passionate.
Candace Woods, love your story. So inspirational. Yes, it is.
Yes, Candace, that's my
It
business
is.
coach. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes, yes.
And
One of
you're
the big
right,
reasons why
Peggy.
the book is written.
And I need to talk to her.
Support system.
So, support system, yes, that's what Peggy
Mm-hmm.
said. You need to
Mm-hmm.
have a support system. Um, so yes, like I said, reading this book, like I said, all the tabs.
I see you.
It is so healing. It is such a tool, a powerful tool for healing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not gone through what you've gone through, but we all go through stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I'm convicted, you know, in this. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Am I doing something? Have I not forgiven somebody for something?
Mm.
Yeah. And I was like, but
Yeah.
you know what? I need my hand to heal. That rope
Yes. Ooh, you
analogy,
need to let that rope go.
it's gone because you actually do more good to yourself
Mm-hmm.
by forgiving and letting go than by holding on. So if nobody gets anything else from this, let that be one takeaway, that when you are able to forgive not just the perpetrator but yourself,
Yes.
you got to
Yes. Forgive
forgive
yourself.
so that you can be all that God created you to be. And Ena is
Mm-hmm.
we just scratching the surface. We just
Yeah,
scratching
we
the
can't give it
surface.
all away today.
Mm-mm. Breaking the silence, culinary cakes and conversations. And on Saturday, I will be meeting with interviewing Cornell Friday, the
Mm-hmm.
other half of culinary cakes and conversations. And then the 27th, like I said, I will bring them both together and we're going to eat. We're going to eat
Yes,
and
we
talk.
gonna break bread together.
Going to break bread. And also on the 27th, there's another event, and I'll talk about it. There's two. I'm going to be so busy that day. Three things, two
Wow.
in addition to your interview, but it's all good. And I'll talk
But it's
about those on
good.
Tuesday. It's all good.
Okay.
It's all good. Ena, do you have any final words that you want to share as we close out?
I think the final word that I want to share is I knew that this book was going to be needed, but I didn't know how much. But once the book started getting in the hands of all the people, I have books today that I need to get out. I mean, it's just amazing. Um, when people come to you after they've read your book, people you know, some you don't, and people are FaceTiming me through Messenger, sending me messages, talking to me, and saying, I need to break the silence. And when you hear just how much this book is needed and how I've been thanked for being vulnerable enough to share, to allow somebody else the ability to know that they can live and live free after, is healing. So if you have not broken the silence on anything that you have gone through, and specifically if it's related to child sexual abuse, please get help. I'm not against therapy, counseling, none of that. I'm not saying that this is it, but you should not want to carry around this weight all of your life. Some people end up carrying this to their grave. And we have to get bold enough to stand up and to teach our family the importance of those conversations. So tonight, I challenge you to work on whatever that thing is and begin to talk to somebody and raise your hand. It's okay to need help. People are so critical of themselves and they're so riddled with shame and guilt that they don't raise their hand, and that raising your hand just a little bit could be your answer. So please, if you need help, if you need some guidance and support, find you a good support system. Please get the book by all means if that's going to be your starting point, because it does. It have prayers, journaling activities, and things you can ponder on to help you begin that walk. So I encourage you to work on your healing. And I won't tell anything else because there's 3 parts to this. So we're going to wait on that last part.
Yes, we'll wait on that last part. But again, the book is called Breaking the Silence: Tools for Impactful Conversations About the Pain, Perception, and Healing Process of Sexual Abuse by my cousin, Ena
My cousin.
Friday. Yes. So Ena, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you want to share this video, there will be a podcast created from this, and this video will also be available on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, like my YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Kishen Newton. I'm going to get Stories with Kishen somehow in there. Also, like the Stories with Kishen page. Tell somebody about it, especially this interview and other interviews in the past, because there have been some amazing people that God has allowed me to connect to for them to share their story. And there's more to come. So again, thank you, Ena. Thank you to everybody who's listening. And tune in on Saturday, the 20th at 7 p.m. to hear part 2 with Cornell Friday. Everybody have a good night. God bless.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you, Keisha, so much.